Okay, so welcome back. We are the Unsettled. I begin with this one. It's very creepy one. This one.
Creepy?
Mm.
How?
Well, I'll get into it. So, the Hinterkaifeck murders occurred on the evening of 31st of March 1922.
Yeah.
In which 6 members of the family on a small Bavarian farm north of Munich were basically murdered.
So, what you're trying to say is, we're the Unsettled, and this is Hinterkaifeck murders?
Hinterkaifeck murder.
And it happened almost 100 years ago.
Yep.
Do you want me to help you out with this?
Well, you can say the names. I know you love saying the names.
Okay. So, as Will just said, this is the Hinterkaifeck murders. We're the Unsettled. And it seems that you've pretty much nailed the beginning perfectly. Better than what I did. So, he's now going to continue. Okay. But, there was over 100 suspects. And the killer still remains unidentified today. And it's one of the most discussed and famous cases in Germany ever to happen at this point. And it's probably, like you said, it's the creepiest that you could ever stumble upon. It's more of a, I don't know, when we get into it, you'll realise how fucking creepy this gets.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, viewer discretion slightly advised. There might be some things in this that might trigger some people. And there might be some things where afterwards you might want to check your attic. Just putting it bluntly. So as you said, there was a murder of 6 people. So 4 people were slaughtered in a barn. The other 2 victims were murdered in their beds / cot.
Yeah.
It's safe to say the killer of this brutal killing would be dead by now. It's 100 years. It is bound to be dead by now. So you all can sleep tight with this one, I guess. So, Father Andreas Gruber noticed something strange a week before his own murder. Footsteps in the snow. Doesn't sound out of the ordinary just yet, but when you realise that the footsteps were prominent from the woods to the house,
and no return.
No return.
May I add?
That's when something becomes a bit more fishy. So anyway, Andreas spoke to his neighbour about this. His neighbour offered him a gun for protection. Andreas declined. Why would you decline this? If you were already suspecting someone had been prowling round your home, and may I add, you're in a very safe area. It was not crime-ridden at all. I mean, you're on a farm.
Yeah.
You are pretty much...
You're pretty much on your own, I'm not going to lie.
You're pretty much isolated, but at the same time you do have a couple of neighbouring farms.
Yeah, you do have neighbours.
You know, for someone to offer you a gun because you see footsteps, you kind of want to go, yeah, because I'm out alone here.
Well, maybe he had his own protection, maybe he thought in his own head that he could protect his family. That kind of...
Maybe.
That kind of...
So Andreas lived on the farm with his wife Kazilia, their daughter Victoria, or Victoria, and grandchildren Kazilia SR and Joseph. Because we have to be very specific with the German lingo. Yes. The area they lived in was quiet. As we extended, like just now, we spoke about how it was quite remote, quite isolated. You have a few labouring places.
It's a Bavarian farm. Like, Bavaria is quite few and far between and like, quite sparse.
Yeah.
So
Andreas convinced himself the footsteps were nothing to worry about, whereas me, I would be thinking that's something to worry about.
Yeah, I would start to get suspicious because I don't know what.
Where did they go? They came to my farm, to the window, may I add. Peered in, obviously, and now they vanished. Yeah, again, it's another snowy one. It's another snowy case. So, I shall As I was. Something should have like really tipped him off though. He also found a newspaper in the house he had never brought.
No, they didn't have newspapers basically.
No, but there was a newspaper found in your home. You would now be thinking someone's been prowling around my house.
Yeah,
definitely, definitely. I mean. Furthermore, I'm also going to say this: several keys had now gone missing, which he now could not find. So let alone have you got footsteps, your neighbours offered you a gun, you found a newspaper in your house, and now some of the keys are missing, and your family don't even know where they are. Begs the question. Someone or something was obviously lurking. And as I've always said, I might not believe in ghosts, but I often feel that we are looked at from dark corners of a room.
There's always something in the shadow.
To me, it seems like he was being stalked.
It does.
And like watched.
Stalked, watched, checked out.
Prowled on. Okay. The family's maid, who lived on the farm, quit 6 months before, claiming the house is haunted.
And that's when the weird shit started to happen.
So the maid would hear footsteps at night time, whispers and bangs, despite the family being asleep.
Or out.
Yeah, or
in
out.
Certain circumstances.
That's kind of creepy, you know. If you're laying in bed and you hear footsteps and voices below you or above you,
oh yes,
you're going to start questioning this. But the day the family was killed, the new maid started her job. What a day to start!
What a first day!
Yeah. So how was your day at work? Oh, sorry, you died. She should have started the day after. That's all I'm going to say. One of the most unsettling things about this is 4 of the victims seem to be lured or led to the barn.
Just before you hit on this aspect,
the
father Andreas actually heard sort of a knocking sound in the attic.
Could be rats.
It could be. He did dismiss it at first, but then it happened again. So he went up there to have a look. Now, obviously, we don't know the circumstances of or how in depth he looked, but he had a flashlight. He just looked around. There was no one there.
You can hide behind boxes.
No, you can see critter tracks and stuff, and he just wrote it off and returned back down. So
to be honest, he had a little nose. Was like, oh, it's probably rats. Went back down.
Yeah, pretty much.
What a dumbass. Andreas, his wife, and his daughter, and Kazilia were found butchered to death in the barn, while the 4 family members were led to the barn in the middle of the night. This is what we presume. It's logical they may have been brought into the barn one by one.
Or lured.
One by one. That's kind of creepy, because then you would have to wake them up and take them one by one to the barn to kill them. To me, that kind of sounds a bit weird.
And investigators did a test. So one went down to the barn, which to get to the barn, I might add, they had to walk through the machine shed. And they had to also walk through a bit of the stables. And then you had the barn right at the back. So it was quite. I wouldn't say it was a distance,
but it's a walk enough that you could probably.
One of the investigators went down and shouted, like screamed at the top of her voice, and you couldn't hear it from the house.
But it's also fair to say that you did have a good chance to run away, if you could.
If you could, and that's where it
unless it's someone you know. But they were literally like, it was probably like leading cattle to the slaughter at this point.
Yeah, pretty much.
So Maria, the new maid, was killed in her bed, and young Joseph was slaughtered in his crib. Right. Investigators believe the family was killed with a farming implement called a
mattock.
And do you want to describe what this is? Because we've had so many debates. But go ahead.
So I will say it is a pickaxe kind of thing, but it was got basically on the back. So you got the pickaxe and the 2 picks, but on the back of this mattock is an axe, It's only a thin axe, but still an axe.
Go ahead.
And on the front, it's basically a plough kind of thing, like a solid bit of metal that you would use to lever up a patio slab or like bricks and stuff like that.
Matt add, I drew this to him and he still kept saying it was a fucking pickaxe.
It looks like a pickaxe. I'm not going to lie, it looks like a pickaxe.
My drawing of it was incredible.
You didn't put that axe, it was just a line.
It took effort. That's what we're getting at.
It's like a stickman drawing.
It took effort. I'm not an artist. Sorry. I'm glad you described what the murder weapon was. So it's like a pickaxe with a blade on each side and a pick on the other. That's basically what you should have said.
No, it's an axe. It's an axe on the back end and a plough on the front.
I'm going to tell you something really gross now, because I feel like the viewers need to be disturbed. So Kazilia, SR, was found with clumps of her own hair in her hands, suggesting she was possibly the last to die. Now, she may have spent the last hours looking at her family bleed out from the head. As we know, it's quite a horrific killing.
Yeah, most of them were basically one. I think it was the father. Yeah, he was basically struck over the head with the plough side. Yeah, and it literally cut straight through his skull. Yeah. And basically cut his brain in half. Yeah. And it was the way that it was found. The problem is, this is going to be really gross, but the rodents had eaten most of the top half of the brain that was in the top half of the skull.
You know that sausage roll I ate before we started?
It's coming back up.
No, you've maybe won another one.
Fair enough.
But basically, Kazilia SR, the young daughter, the investigators believe that she didn't die instantly like the others, and she literally watched.
She was struck.
She watched her.
She kind of grabbed her.
But the thing is, they also seem to believe that she had been struck in the head, like Will said. She didn't die, but what she actually died of was shock, because she was pulling her own hair out due to how scared and traumatised she was by seeing her family's head smashed in.
Well, you've got this thing. You've got, like, if let's say that you are the last one, so much adrenaline is running through your system. Like, if you get walloped over the head, you don't notice instantly. No. It's only until you kind of start to relax a little bit.
Imagine being hit in the head.
And then that's when it all...
Imagine being hit in the head, you fall to the floor, and you see, like, your family scattered around with their heads smashed in, and you see the person who done it just looking at you, because that's how she must have felt. She must have been screaming, tugging at her head, wondering what the fuck is going on, and then shock kicked in and it killed her. But she was the last to die. Yeah. So that means she witnessed...
It was a much more violent... Her one was much more violent.
It's not violent, it's just the fact it was more traumatic to die that way.
Yeah, that's why.
Rather than have your head smashed in and you're perfectly fine and dead, she had her head smashed in and remained alive.
But she was still living for those brief seconds.
Yes. So it took a whole week for people to realise the family was missing. So first, Kazilia didn't turn up for school. Right. The family missed church, which they attended to every Sunday.
Yeah. There was also... two, I would say, coffee buyers. They also came to the farm. Yeah. To either purchase an order or place an order. Yeah. And they were like knocking on the doors and windows, but couldn't get any response.
Yeah. So did they just dismiss it?
Yeah, they just maybe they're not in today, and they went away. But
people were seeing smoke coming from the chimney. So no one was worried about it until the mailman noticed no one had collected any mail and it was piling up. Yeah. Then he alerted the neighbours, people went round, they managed to get the door open.
There was 3 of them that went round.
Yeah. Imagine what they saw. Head smashed in.
Well, a little child. They didn't really see anything at the start.
No.
They tried all the doors and windows. They were all locked. was shut. Apart from one window that was upstairs, apparently.
Yeah.
So they then went to the barn. No, they went to the barn to try and find a ladder, and they found the 4
and then
dismembered.
And they went upstairs to see the maid with her head smashed in.
Broke in,
how old was he? He was like 2 or 3 years old.
He was very young.
He was very young, and he had his head smashed in while he was asleep in the crib. That must be very horrific. But the smoke coming from the chimney is a creepy thought. Because this indicates the murderer/murderers remained in the house for possibly a whole week.
With the 2 bodies.
And the bed that the maid had been killed in had also been slept in, which they couldn't find any DNA for.
No,
but
which sounds like they went to bed. Yeah. In their clothes.
Yeah, but it also makes me think that the person that killed them slept next to the bodies that he'd just killed. Is that unsettling enough? I'll carry on. Investigators even noticed that animals had been fed on the farm and the milking of the cows had also been taken care of.
Yeah, all the daily duties.
So whoever killed them remained in that farm for a whole week. It's not nice.
Maybe they were just keeping up appearances.
So, let's just think on this. You kill 4 people in the barn, 2 in the bedroom, and then you live in the house, eat the food, sleep in the bed, feed the animals. Even the thought of having an intruder in your home when you're not there is creepy enough, moving stuff around. But for them to be in there after they've killed you, you have something mentally fucking wrong with you. It's got to be slightly disturbing.
It's already disturbing. But definitely slightly more now.
But it's kind of weird that the maid heard voices, talking, footsteps, and then quit. Alright, I can understand if you think it's haunted and you're like, fuck it, I ain't staying here. But for her to hear all this leading up to the death of the family.
She did raise her points to Andreas, but he checked these things out.
And like I said,
and it was dismissed.
Hiding in the attic. It's an easy way to do it. And the ladder was easy to just pull down and pull back up while the family were asleep.
Yep. And that would hence the knocking and banging and...
I'm not being funny. If you're alone in a farmhouse and you hear noises in the attic...
You would go up there and thoroughly search.
I would check to see if it's probably a squirrel or something.
Thoroughly search. I wouldn't just poke
my head up and a bird.
No, it's nothing up there. Bites.
Yeah, a squirrel or a bird or something that might have got trapped. But just to think that someone's living above you who's going to kill you in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, but they didn't really know that.
No, but
it's that thought.
The thought process of knowing someone is living in your home, and when you go to work and when you go to bed, they have now clocked everything of what you're doing. It's a very strategic way to kill someone. One uncomfortable detail I hardly mention anywhere is that Andreas and his daughter Victoria,
this is the disturbing bit,
had been arrested for incest in 1915. Yeah, it was apparently an abusive relationship. Victoria served 1 month in prison. Andreas vanished for a whole year to then return. So we're going to go over some other details now. But I don't know. What are you going to say on this so far?
Disgusting. Gross. Ew.
Is that the best you got?
Is that the best you got? There is no words that it's... Oh.
So, we are obviously going to discuss our theories of who killed the family.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna now just talk on some other little aspects. So, coming from Andreas and his daughter's perverse incest relationship, Could it be possible? Could it really be possible that many people around that area knew that Joseph was actually part of some form of inbreeding, hated the family and just wanted them shot?
The problem is, it's been proven that the son, or Joseph, is actually his.
Yeah.
Via DNA profiling.
And I would also like to point out, before we get on to, like, not necessarily our theories, because these will obviously come later, but I would also like to point out that Victoria was a bit of a harlot. Yeah. She did have, even though she was married to someone in the army who allegedly had died.
How did he die, by the way?
What, the guy in the army?
Yeah, apparently.
No one knows. Apparently he died in battle.
Oh, so it was like killed in action.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But for me to think that, and then for the Victoria to go about sleeping with whoever.
While the husband's away, the girl will play.
And she plays with her daddy.
Well, that's... Yeah.
It's a little bit of a...
But then it can't have been that horrific for her to then move back in with her mother and father.
No. But as we discussed, the family were led to the barn.
Yeah.
I actually wrote down here that Kazilia, whatever, the daughter's name.
The daughter, yeah.
She was just 8 years old. 8 years old when she was led to that barn and smashed with a weapon that you seem to love so much. And my other bits and pieces that I still have here.
But you think, right, so that little girl must have known who that person was.
She would have saw the killer, easy. And she would have felt comfortable with whoever led her to the barn. Because it seems
like
the whole family...
Even if you said, don't make a sound,
it seems the whole family were comfortable being led one by one to the barn to have their heads smashed in. And whether they were comfortable or not, it seems to me that they knew the killer.
In some form or another.
Yeah, I mean, there was also another piece of information where Joseph was a son of a nearby neighbour. Because it seems Victoria can't keep her fucking legs closed. And to me,
but if I was correct, that neighbour denied all allegations.
Yeah. And
won several small claims.
No, the only reason...
Basically of allegations that he was the father, and...
The only reason the neighbour that I wrote down came into my head, that it could have been him, like Joseph could have been his son, is because the neighbour recently lost a son, and it sent him a little bit funny. So he could have then gone to the house, killed the family, and thought, fuck it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I would have thought in that aspect that he would have either just killed the son, or just taken the son.
I know we're going to get into our theories of who we think it was.
Do you want to go through some suspects?
I will give a couple of hints.
Okay.
Okay, so many believe Victoria killed her own family. Now, wait. Victoria killed her own family and then smashed her own head in after the sexual abuse. Or not, she may have liked
it. Well, that's the thing. Like, it doesn't just hit you 10 years later.
But still, you could kill your own family and smash your own head in with it. It's not unheard of.
No, but it's just the way that her head was smashed in. She would never have been able to do it herself.
Okay.
Not after the first blow. The first blow would have killed her instantly anyway.
Yeah, okay. So say Victoria led her father to the barn. She could have easily led him in a sexy nightgown, dragged him into the barn and was like, hey, do you want to roll in the hay? And then as he was about to take his clothes off, whacked him in the head.
Or the mum turned up and smacked him.
Then she could have gone to go get her mother, took the mum down the barn and said, Dad's had a nasty accident. She goes in there, clop, right? Then she goes to wake up her daughter, has a bit of remorse with her daughter, hits her still, but doesn't hit her as hard as what she hit the person that's probably been perverting on her for the last fucking God knows how many years. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
It's possible, and then when she finally loses the plot after killing so many people, she just goes and does it. I'm just saying.
No. It's plausible, but...
Yep. Oh, yeah, Joseph was 2 years old when he had his head smashed in. No one knew that Joseph belonged to either... Way up the pros and cons. Police was aware that Joseph was possibly Andreas, and if so, that means they both continued their incest daddy-daughter sex after they both were convicted.
Yep. Which would fit if she moved back in.
Daddy-daughter
because obviously she's
sex.
technically widowed.
Daddy-daughter sex. Now we say she's technically widowed because allegedly her husband was killed in battle.
Yeah, in action.
We still really don't know.
Well, he was first classified as missing in action.
Yeah.
And then after a long...
Yeah.
Basically, with there was so many people being taken hostage and everything else. And when they released the prisoners of war, he actually never returned back to the barracks.
No.
So he was then placed as killed in action.
But then, before we get into our theories, they should have had a letter sent home to say that he was killed in action, and there was no letter to say that Victoria's husband...
There was a letter saying he was missing.
Yeah.
But there was not a letter saying that he was killed in action, which is the secondary letter, which it should have been.
Yeah.
And that's all military.
Now, did you, when you
militaries?
Yeah, when you investigated this case, like I did you realise that the family's skulls were removed from their heads and sent to a clairvoyant for more answers? So the whole family, bearing the maid, were buried headless. Because that's how you want to be buried. Fucking headless. You dare say the dead tell no lies. The dead don't speak.
No, the dead tell no secrets.
Yeah.
Because they can't, because they got no heads. But no, technically it means that the body or spirit is still on rest.
So I will say this before we begin. One of the main theories, before we get into our separate ones, one of the main theories was that Victoria's husband had returned and was horrified that Victoria had a child with another man, her daddy. He found this out because rumours were actually going around that it could have been her father's with his own daughter, which is just...
Well, he could have found out from sources that obviously they've had this allegation of incest and convicted. You know, it doesn't take a lot for that to... Or maybe he knew when he was in the army and that's why he got either...
That's why he went
killed
missing.
or missing. It's a perfect opportunity. I will say another theory. There is another theory. So basically it was during the war aspect. There was a German-speaking Soviet officer.
Yeah.
They didn't give no names.
Okay.
But he was nicknamed the Hinterkaifeck murderer.
Okay.
Now, he was nicknamed this. He apparently self-promoted himself as this.
I would like to say...
to cause fear within the war aspect.
Right, I would like to say most people do claim they done something when they didn't.
No, I mean, that is true.
Many of the perverse criminal mind would do that.
True, but back then, obviously, using that as a scare tactic if you're intimidating someone.
Yeah. Or
if you're, like, prosecuting them somewhere, somehow.
Yeah.
Or even trying to get information.
Yeah.
You'll be like, right, so this next person that's going to come in that's going to, like, do the torture, do the investigation. He's killed. He has a nickname.
Yeah.
like that's instantly that fear tactic. So like back then, a lot of I'm gonna say a lot of European people like that. You've got the Butcher of the Nile. You've got like in history, it's a good thing to bolster yourself up within that aspect.
It's a good thing to give yourself a good name.
Yeah, or even a bad name. If it's going to get the information at the end of the day, that's what you go for. But whether that's true or not, it's literally just. It's not necessarily a rumor because he actually.
He pretty much admitted to the whole fucking thing.
He pretty much said, "Yeah, I did it."
Yeah.
But he just then disappeared.
Yeah.
And it was, no one really knows whether it was red tape or he was killed in the next fight or whatever.
Yeah.
We don't know.
So
he just disappears.
Before we get into our theories, 100 suspects were interviewed. None came up conclusive. But in 2007, more than 80 years later, the Gruber family case was given to German students. German students of a police academy. And they managed to work out with today's technology who done it, but they've kept it to themselves. So it's not necessarily an unsolved case, but at the same time, they haven't released who's done it.
No, they've done it for the right reasons. I say they've done it for the right reasons. It's the right reasons for the family that are still going at this time.
Yeah. I mean, they've kept it out of respect to save the family who are alive at this time. Obviously, the torment
of re-bringing up the case, re-interviewing everyone.
Yeah, blah, 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 blah. But these students did find out who it was. And they have said that they will keep it to themselves. So you can Google search this, you can look on Wikipedia. It will still say unsolved to this day.
Yeah.
But bearing in mind, these students who've used today's technology have actually managed to find out who done it. Let's get into our theories.
I think it's time.
So, my theory on who killed the family. Now, many of you have probably got to think, well, say aliens, but I'm not. My theory is simply it was the returning husband. Mainly because, and I'm sure many of you might agree or you might not, but I seem to think that if the family were led to the barn, it would have to be led by someone that they would know. They weren't tied up. They walked there freely. So to me, they were led there by someone they knew. The other part is the husband of Victoria. He would know how to feed the animals. He would know how to milk a cow. He lived with the family. So my main theory is the fact that he found out when AWOL, this is why no letter returned to their home, he stalked the family and planned each death in unison. Now with that, he led them to the barn. He took what he needed to do and killed them. Now, you don't have to be intelligent to kill someone with a weapon. But how he done it was possibly the most dramatic way you could ever do it. Making sure that Joseph was possibly the last one to die. Being that you know, it wasn't even his son, and he obviously found out about the daddy-daughter issues. Other than that, he would know how to hide. He would probably be in talks with people, possibly friends in the army, who could cover up with the fact that he went AWOL, just before he planned it anyway. So, he leads them to the barn, kills them, and gets away with it. And the only reason he gets away with it is simply with the fact that he knows exactly what he's doing. Now, as for people discovering, you know, who actually killed the family, it would make more sense to think that the family of his would still be alive. He may have had a separate family away after doing these murders and making sure that the dirty, incest-riddled family were taken care of. he could have started a new life elsewhere. And therefore they're protecting the identity of his new family. But that is my main theory. And yeah, I really don't know what else you would do in that sense. You come back, or you're in the army, you hear that your wife is sleeping with her father, and she's doing more than kissing him goodnight. So yeah, that's my theory. I'll stick to it, and that'll be the way it works.
So who do I think that did it? Well, you're going to have to be one disturbed individual to actually murder a family in that way. To then also live in the house as there's nothing had happened. Like, eat the food. Like, feed the animals. Like, who would even do that? You know, maybe it's even like a guilty conscience or something. Maybe it's remorse. Like, maybe it's he, you know, had committed these acts and then thought, oh God, what have I done? You know, it's that. It's just weird. See, there's been a lot of coverage. I would say a lot of suspects. Some being quite a lot of brothers. A lot of people have been. There's too many to name, but I will point out one individual. His name is Paul Mueller, and he was originally a US citizen, and he fled the USA to Germany. He's been rumoured to be within the area of Munich anyway, maybe travelling down this way. Now, the reason why I suspect this individual is purely because when he then left and returned to the USA, he basically got convicted of murders that he had committed over in the USA, but the stories and how he murdered these families is exactly, near enough exactly the same way. The families were lured out to a specific place and murdered in such a gruesome manner that he then admitted that he had stayed in the residences for a few days at least after that. He then went on to admit it's not the first lot of stuff that he had done, but he wouldn't state what other countries he's done it in, but he does state he's done it in a few. But I'll leave it up to you guys. You know, who done it? So,
it's a bag of worms.
We still not.
I would like to say though, even though we are no closer to the truth, I think this is one of them cases where I do want to know who it was. Out of all of them we've done so far, season 1 and this season, I want to know who did this.
It's more intriguing than anything else, isn't it?
It's intriguing to know that someone lived in that house and planned it. That takes cunning, skill, and to not be spotted.
Yeah.
And they must know about animals. Not being funny, like, we know how to milk a cow.
But not to feed
not to a farm's extent.
No.
You pull another, milk comes out. That's as good as I know. But I wouldn't know how to do it properly, like I've lived on that farm before.
True. See,
and I wouldn't know where the food would be.
Myself.
Yeah, but to know where the food is, to know where it's all stored.
True. But then, you know, you've got all the time in the world to look around.
Alright, you've been prowling around the farm for about a month.
Well, to be fair, like they've been hearing noises and footsteps and knocking and banging for at least a month.
Mm. Alright. They've had a month to figure shit out.
You know, they've had footsteps from the woods to the thing.
Okay.
Now, I will say this: we didn't hit on this in the main one.
Okay.
But a week before their deaths, the mother and the father, Andreas and was it Giselle? Gazelia, yeah.
One weird name.
They actually had a really bad argument.
Yeah.
And she stormed off to the woods.
Yeah.
And then she was later found in the woods, just crying.
Carry on.
Now, obviously, then she went. They obviously.
Okay.
And went back to the house and
yeah,
settled up this thing, but
you've just touched on something that I might have just clocked onto.
In the slightest aspect. Now,
yeah, go on.
In my own head, this little bit of information that we may have missed in the main segment. Could it be linked to your theory?
It might be, but I also might have just come up with another one.
See, in my head, why would she go to the woods? Yes, okay, it's to get away.
Okay, also in my head, is it possible that they had a massive argument over who is the father of her daughters?
Maybe.
Had the massive argument, he told her exactly what had been going on, because he did vanish for a year. And it's not known whether the wife actually found out about their incestuary mummy loves, daddy loves daughter issue.
Yeah, but the daughter went to prison, so for at least 2
Yeah, but then for the mother to then remain with the husband after finding out she's just been...
Exactly.
Is it plausible that the wife of Andreas found all this information out, spoke to someone who she knew, let slip to a certain husband what had been going on. She meets him in the woods, gives him a few keys. He then walks to the house from the woods. She's well aware of it, but she doesn't know how far he's going to take it.
Maybe he was already in the woods.
Maybe he'd been watching.
Maybe he was AWOL at that point.
Maybe, like I said, she made the phone call. They had the big argument. He then returned.
Or she stormed out and come across him in the woods.
It would be orchestrated. She'd know he's in the woods. She'd know he'd be in the woods. But either way, we're never going to find out. But we've come up with a new theory.
Still unsettled.
And we've come up with a new theory. So maybe the wife did know.
Will be.
Until next time.
Until then.
Don't forget to like, share and subscribe.
Hit that notification bell.